chapters, coming to the next chapter, and I think this is what I hope we all can learn from this experience. That's why I got him in. Thank you. The next is an interesting panel, I believe, and I think I tried to mix it into what we did with the agenda the whole day, is bringing people together that would like to talk to each other, but actually are not in the same boat. And people here in the room have seen me talking about this in the last 12 months, so I said, okay, it's the conference we're running here, so can we find somebody else that's even better than me in talking about it? So I've asked Sebastian, please come on stage, from BCG, and Magda, and you have seen her last year as well. Please come on stage, Magda. To actually talk a little bit about the challenge between Insurtech and AI and doing things together. So I hope we have a really nice fireside chat with you. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Magda. Very excited to have you. I know you are a true expert on Insurtechs, and probably everyone here in the room knows you already, but for those who don't know you yet, mind like give a brief intro?
Yes. So my name is Magda. I've been at WTW for almost 20 years, 19 to be exact. And I lead our global Insurtech innovation. I've started my Insurtech journey 10 years ago when we still didn't have a spelling for Insurtech with an E or without an E. And I've been doing this for a long time. I interact with a lot of startups. I do mentoring, and I have to, know about almost every technology out there and how they evolve and how they can impact what we do. At WTW, we actually am part of our leadership team on technology, and we develop technology for insurers and reinsurers only. So a lot of what I do goes into what our products should look like, how they evolve, and what insurers will need in 5 years from now and 10 years from now.
Sounds super interesting. Like there's a lot to learn from you. The theme of the day is impact on the insurance value chain. So could you share with us your perspective on what's currently going on in the Insurtech landscape, in the insurance landscape? Where do you see Insurtechs and insurers really changing the rules of the game in the field of AI/Gen AI?
So it's interesting, right? Because when people ask me, are we using AI in insurance? I say, well, define AI. And there's a very wide definition out there of what AI is. We try to think about differentiating it in, high-performing algorithms that are using big data, not necessarily AI, but it feels a lot like AI, and some people call it AI. Machine learning, which we have been using in the context of pricing and underwriting and even claims and real-time decision-making for, I would say, at least 6 years now. And then you have the more advanced uses of AI, like automated planning and scheduling, which is used in in autonomous cars, for instance, and things like deep learning, neural networks, and now Gen AI, everyone knows what it is, right? So there's lots of flavors of AI. And if we take the more advanced uses of AI, there's areas of the value chain that use it a lot more consistently, including pricing and claims and underwriting. And to some extent, we're also now looking at the users in the context of product building. And so Hannah just mentioned Yarova. I'm a big fan of that company. They actually do something very close to computable contracting. Is that AI? No, but you use AI tools to actually extract the information to be able to build that. So there's I would say across the value chain, we've seen the uses of AI. Insurtech 10 years ago really started being about distribution. How do you talk to a customer, how you interact with a customer, how you acquire a customer in a better way. It has moved away from that, and now it's really about tech enabling transformations. And they started in the more technical areas and now are going more towards areas like the interaction with the customer on customer service, on the post-sale stages, on claims. We heard a lot of that yesterday on the pitches with the startups. But there's also machine learning in the context of reserving. My colleague Bastian was talking about it yesterday, and it's a super exciting area where machine-led reserving, I always said I'm not an actuary, so I always said, I'm not going to do the capital and reserving side of things. I'm going to keep on the other areas of the value chain. And when I saw the machine-led reserving thing that we're doing, it's like, oh, perhaps I need to get into reserving a bit more. So it's all over, right? It's all over.
Do you see or do you observe geographical differences? Are people in Asia or in North America more advanced than, for instance, in good old Europe?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, depends on what you mean with more advanced. Is it the type of use case and where it's being implemented and the impact of the use of the technology, or is it really about the actual algorithm and the level of sophistication of the technique being used, right? So depending on in which jurisdiction you are and how data can be used, there's cooler things you can do. And then there's the EU AI Act, where some things are just not possible because of the type of data you have access to and how you have to navigate data privacy. So I would say in terms of sophistication of algorithms, some areas, including China, are ahead in certain things because they're able to combine behavioral analytics with customer analytics, with financial behavioral analytics, with risk analytics. And that's really cool, and that's not easy to do if you don't have huge amounts of data, right? But in the context of how you use it, no. We see different use cases. So there's more agency analytics and channel analytics in Asia Pac. But Asia Pac has very different regions. Like you can't compare Southeast Asia to Australia or to Japan. In the US, there's a lot of innovation on how you interact with decision making, right? And the decision maker could be the customer on an online portal. It could be the underwriter. It could be the claims agent. It could be a lot of people, right? So I would argue the differences are in the levels of investment, but not in the sophistication, and the difference are in the specific use cases that have more prominence.
Thanks, Lou. I have a story to share, and out of that comes a question.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, I had the chance to talk to Dario, the CEO from Anthropic, the guys who left OpenAI and founded this another company. And he was talking about, first of all, which was super interesting, the exponential growth in terms of capabilities with regards to GenAI, but he was also talking about the exponential growth of cost. Yeah, he said today's models cost 1 billion, probably not a lot of money in this region, but a hell lot of money for other regions in the world. Next model will be around 10 billion. Yeah, and he said right after that we will talk about models costing like 100 billion to build. And a couple of weeks thereafter, I was talking to some hyperscalers, among them Google and AWS. And they were like, oh, we want to go deep into certain parts of the value chain. We want to build certain capabilities ourselves, or we want to partner with Insurtech in order to get the capabilities we need in order to basically create traffic in our cloud environment. And I was wondering, is the Insurtech landscape kind of changing? So let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 years back, Insurtechs had to approach insurance companies in order to get some funding. Now, if you are an Insurtech and you want to build something new, first of all, you rely on those large language models that are being provided by some of the biggest companies in the world. There will always be smaller models. I know, maybe we could talk about that as well. Super interesting part. But probably for large parts, you will depend on those large players. And you kind of need to partner with those hyperscalers in order to provide your service. So to what extent does the landscape for Insurtechs change with regards to partnering, whom to approach, how to navigate this entire landscape?
That's actually a great question. So I'll give you a very concrete example. And we haven't rehearsed this, so we just met. So essentially, in these areas where we will see more and more out-of-the-box modules that are provided by Azure or AWS or very large big tech companies, and I think that will continue, and that has actually changed some of the ways some of these Insurtechs are building their products. So very concretely, 6 years ago, everyone was about OCR and natural language processing, right? And those were areas of AI before generative AI that were very advanced back then because they emulate the way the brain works. So convolutional neural networks, they emulate your visual cortex, and that's how they process images. So it was all about what can be read in which way, how do we structure unstructured data, and there was a number of Insurtechs, or I call them ... techs, because they were not specific to insurers. Insurance was a use case that were in that space. So you had OCR and NLP all over and those disappeared, right? Because those are areas that now you can get from very large tech providers. They're stable, they're going to be there. They're looking at compliance, and the way to maintain and evolve these areas of knowledge is very capital intensive, and they don't have to go through Series A and Series B to actually get there. So that has changed, and a lot of these Insurtech startups, or in general tech startups, are now leveraging those modules of technology and specifying more what is the right use case, how can we solve certain problems, and how do we make it specific. So there's a lot of discussion about generalist solutions and insurance-specific solutions. Do they really deliver the same type of value? I would argue they don't, right? There's tables, there's way of processing data that just don't have enough fields, that are just not fit for purpose. Even, when you're looking at Azure, right? We have an accelerator to build underwriting workbenches, and a great part of that accelerator was to just say, okay, these are the tools that Azure has. How do we adapt all of this and take Power Apps and transform it into something that can be used for underwriting and insurance and the type of data they have? So I think that is the way it has changed. It also has changed the internal buyer of an Insurtech. You now have to talk to the problem owners and not to IT, not to the tech stack owners. So the way insurers are buying technology has also changed.
That's actually a very interesting part, the way insurers buy technology. So when you look at the insurance space, I think insurers have to do three things if they want to be successful, especially in the era of Gen AI. First of all, they have to focus on the functions and activities that matter most to their strategy and to like their goals. They shouldn't spread their resources all across the value chain, because especially in Gen AI, resources are scarce, so they need to focus. The second thing is they need to go deep into a functional transformation. Just applying technology is not enough. They need to change processes, change workflows. Culture especially, yes. Yeah. Reskilling and upskilling people is super important. So we're always talking about technology like the whole day, but it's not only technology. I think we all agree on that. Probably the majority is in other parts. And the third part is they have to reallocate resources to like Gen AI. They need to get rid of like initiatives they have been planning before that deliver a lower like marginal benefit, and they have to reallocate resources to Gen AI. And from an insurer perspective, how do you look at insurers reallocating resources to interesting parts of the value chain and interesting insurtechs and interesting partnerships? What's your experience from Willis Towers Watson when talking to insurers about that?
So very briefly, because I think we're out of time, but...
is this the music? Okay. I haven't
so I got a 0 second right there, so I'm going to try to summarize the answer. So the way insurers are deploying the resources is essentially... there's all sorts of ways of doing this, but the most effective ones are about small teams that are very quick at assessing the impact and the experimentation of what they're doing, focusing on the easy use cases first. So for generative AI, you just give access to Copilot to people and say, try to use it. We have talked to Microsoft. It's a safe way of using it. Your data, your information, your confidential client data is not going to get out there. See how does it work for you? Does it work for your CRM management? Does it work for your emails? And people then get used to the piece of technology on a first place. That generates a bit of changes in productivity, but it starts the cultural change towards a certain technology. And then in our case, we have an algorithmic team. We have a team that has sat down and they were looking at what is the best use case to understand this. So we wanted to start with coding. And can we use it to generate code? And, you give a prompt and you get a code, and you give the same prompt 50 times, you get 50 codes. And those are different in terms of how resilient they are, how bug prone they are, how efficient they are, how they use processing power. So experimentation is a great part of that, but you need to know what you want to achieve. And I think that's the most effective way of doing it, getting people acquainted with the tool and then having your KPIs to understand, is this having an impact? And does it work, or is it too early for a technology, for instance, in the context of coding?
Magda, thanks so much. I think they took some minutes away from us for whatever reason. Yeah, could have talked to you forever. Magda, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you.
Shall I continue? Yeah. Okay. You're a guest now, right? So, okay, you're switching roles. So,